Hey everybody, and welcome to Codec Calls with me, MJS Penner, and I'm here with a good friend of mine, Ic3lion.
Hey.
He is a retro streamer. He plays old school RPGs and just older school games in general, all on original hardware. And I've known this man for quite a long time now.
Over 10 years, I'd say.
Yeah, it's been a while, so I'm excited to finally do this because I enjoy picking your brain when it comes to video games. And yeah, I don't know. So I have some stuff here that I've just kind of been kicking around. Obviously, you stream, like I mentioned, play old school RPGs. What kind of got you into streaming? Like, what made you want to?
So it all came about actually when I was looking up Mega Man X on YouTube. And when I was going through Mega Man X videos on YouTube, I had found what was called GDQ, or for what people may know now is called Games Done Quick. Games Done Quick is something that's ran twice a year, and it's speedrunners who raise money for charities, Doctors Without Borders, things like that. And I saw a Mega Man X speedrun by a person named Caleb Hart 42. And when I was looking at everything, I saw these little symbols. So I saw like the Twitter symbol, I understood that, but then I saw the Twitch symbol. I was like, I have no clue what this is. And that's actually how I found Twitch and got involved inside the community. And then as I started to watch that and I saw the community and how people build and interact and come together, it kind of reminded me of that thing when you were a kid when your friend would get a new video game. You'd be like, dude, I got to stay the night. I got to come over and I got to play it all weekend, man, until we beat it. I was like, that's what I wanted. I wanted to have that thing where we could sit down and build a community and play through all of our old favorites.
That's awesome, man. I don't think I've ever heard that story from you before. To be honest,
that is legit. It was just a pure random YouTube search, and I'd never known what Twitch or Justin TV or anything like was before that.
That's super awesome, man. I'm not gonna lie. That's a really odd, like, good reason to get into this. Is I never thought about it that way, but it really is like building a community.
Yep.
That's awesome. So what do you think about all these remakes that are coming out recently? The Ni no Kuni remake / port for the Switch came out, and we have the Final Fantasy VII remake right around the corner. These are some RPGs, obviously Ni no Kuni being newer than Final Fantasy VII, but like, what do you think the kind of draw is to bringing these back to current and like giving them new battle mechanics, for instance, with Final Fantasy VII?
Sure. So, like, first thing for me, I've never grabbed my credit card so fast in my life. When they announced the Final Fantasy VII remake and they announced the collector's edition, I'm pretty sure I had my credit card in 0.2 seconds on Square Enix's store to buy it. So, a lot of times when you look at retro products, a large part of it is nostalgia. When you play those games back in the day, you have a certain memory of how you remember it in that time. So I really like to see these remakes. One, it expands it to a new audience, people who may have not gotten to play it in its original state. And two, it's good to see those past memories that you have that you can relive in a new way. A lot of times you'll see people be very negative about remakes, but what I always tell people is you always have the original. They can never take that away from you. So whether you like what happens with this remake or you absolutely love it, you still have that original source material you can always go back to with your memories.
Yeah,
so I think it's a good thing. I think it expands the audience, and I think it gives people a new opportunity to play it.
I would agree with that completely because most people with current gen consoles only never played the original Ni no Kuni.
Correct.
Heck, a lot of people that have, current gen consoles now haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII, which is, in some people's opinion, one of the best.
Yeah. It made RPGs a main genre in the United States.
It really, did kind of bring it, I guess, to everybody's plate. Like, it was very accessible for everybody. There was something that everybody could find enjoyment out of to play it.
Correct.
And I think gaming in general has gotten away from that a lot, to be honest with you. It's gotten very competitive, esports and stuff like that. It's very mainstream now. Even, streaming. A lot of people stream. A lot of people make content, man.
Correct.
So, I don't know. So, what is it about older RPGs that you kind of draw you more towards current gen ones? Ni no Kuni 2 was still an RPG, but not in the same aspect as the first one was. It kind of took away from those original gameplay mechanics that I found enjoyable. So, what is it in older RPGs do you enjoy more so than new ones? Because I know you play more older ones than
Sure. So
newer ones.
I still enjoy both, but I think the reason that I enjoy retro is I feel that the developers and the composers and everything had to work a lot harder. You know, when you see a character that literally may have, I don't know, 100 pixels to make up its entire character base and its expressions and emotions and everything like that, compared to now we have, I don't know, hundreds of millions of
Yeah.
pixels to make up one frame in a video game. I think it's really neat to see how they conveyed that emotion and stuff through a smaller frame of reference. They had less technology to work with. And I think, you know, they were really able to focus on the stories and the music and stuff, where now I think a lot of developers, as you said, you know, with Ni no Kuni 2, even though graphically it kind of had the same sense and the feel, they had to focus more on the mechanics and then how it looked than necessarily exactly what made the first game great.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people would agree that even though Ni no Kuni 2 was a fun game to play, it didn't have the heart of the original.
Yeah.
So.
I've still not played the second one due to hearing that, to be honest
and
with
it
you.
really is. It's very serviceable game. It's an action RPG that works great with some of the charm that was in the first one, but you just don't connect to it as much as you did. It's the first one.
All right.
So, but yeah, still appreciate both. But I don't know, retro is just, that's what I grew up on as well.
Yeah, same. I mean, I didn't grow up on like the SNES and stuff like that, like some people have. My first console I had as a family was the N64, and then my first personal console was a PlayStation 1.
All right.
I played my buddy's Dreamcast from time to time when we would hang out and play like House of the Dead and stuff like that. Just, so I kind of dabbled, but I mean, I think there was a lot of really good games on those consoles that we still need on this. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
So hopefully we'll get that, or backwards compatibility fully from both.
I think that would be great in PS5 if it truly happens. And I think the Switch has really shown that, they can look back at past catalogs and bring them back. I think that's one of the best things the Switch has done to help its sales, is to take either product from their old Nintendo libraries or even other systems, and they've ported it to Switch. I think that's been fantastic.
I think I've actually heard a rumor of them putting some 3DS titles, like continuing them on the Switch instead of,
I'd be completely okay with that.
Yeah.
So
I would love that. So what is an older game mechanic that you don't see as much in newer games? Like, I know we were kind of talking about like the heart and like the songs they chose and like how it was composed to kind of, and I agree we don't really see that as much, but what's a game mechanic? Like, we don't really see turn-based games happen a whole lot
turn-based is
anymore.
definitely one of them. Random battles, for sure. I think almost all games has eliminated random battles unless they're trying to go for a retro vibe. I think nobody enjoys that. I think it kind of, before they had to do that to pad game length.
Yeah.
As I said, kind of same thing where we talked where technology wasn't as big. They couldn't fit as much of a product on a cart just because it had certain limitations compared to the hard drive sizes we have now. I think that's one thing that you truly see is it's not fun to have random encounters anymore because you want to be able to plan out and explore and things without having a nuisance as you're going through certain things. I think that's probably the number one mechanic as far as RPGs go that we don't see. I think another thing besides, a certain sect of games is inventory management.
Yes.
A lot of games back in the day had very strict inventory management. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, things like that. Silent Hill, not Silent Hills. That never came. I'm very upset about that. But
and we will be touching on that at some point too.
But it's it's one of those things that you do see mechanics that either increase the difficulty or increase the length of a title. Because they had to, because of yet again limitations that we don't see now. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think when you look at RPGs, I don't want to say Final Fantasy 13 because people aren't a huge fan of that. But even action RPGs like God of War, where the encounters are scripted and things like that, I think it provides a certain experience as you go through it compared to just constantly having random battles pop up. So.
I feel like the planned encounters kind of pave the way. Even in open world games, the battle's going to happen here or here when the player crosses this,
Correct.
And it kind of shoves you in a way you should go instead of being able to explore and grind and
I think that helps with experience too. It helps developers tailor content based around a certain difficulty.
Yeah.
Whereas before, when you had random battles, you could just constantly do it to be over leveled in most games.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So I'm sure you have a favorite soundtrack or score from video games.
Ooh.
So, or at least the top 5.
So that's really hard. So I'll give you a couple of my favorite. Nier.
Okay.
Is by far one of my favorite. You could also lump Nier Automata into it as well, because it's done by the same composer and it shares a lot of the same songs. That's probably one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. I would also say Panzer Dragoon Saga, very rare title for the Sega Saturn, has just something completely different and unique about it that not a lot of other games did. It's very electronic, but not in the sense of like EDM or anything like that. Just a lot of what they did, they focused on drums and elements that you normally don't see that would build a whole soundtrack. And other than that, I would probably say Chrono Cross. Okay. I know a lot of people don't like it as a direct sequel to Chrono Trigger, but Chrono Cross has one of the best environmental soundtracks I think you could have. It completely, each area you went to, the song that they played completely encompassed what they expected you to feel. I think that was a fantastic job.
All right.
So, but yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite.
Okay.
I don't have a favorite. Those are some of my favorites.
Yeah, no, yeah. I completely understandable. Yeah. That's a lot. You've played a lot of games and you've heard a lot of soundtracks, I'm sure.
It's true.
So even for games you haven't played, you know what I'm saying?
That's also true, yeah.
So, kind of on the soundtrack score aspect and even talking about these random encounters like previously, did you ever play Dragon Quest? You played Dragon Quest 11 on the PS4 originally.
So I have played it on the PS4 and I've bought the Switch version, but I have not had a chance to play it with the new soundtrack. So okay. For those of you who don't know, and I think this is the reason that MGS asked this question, when we originally got it in the United States, we got what was called the chiptune or bit music. We did not get the actual full arranged soundtrack.
Correct, yeah.
So in Japan, they wanted to sell concert tickets. The composer actually wanted to be able to play the arranged soundtrack to basically help boost sales in Japan and things like that, so we didn't receive it. However, in the Switch version, you actually have the option to have the full arranged soundtrack.
Yep.
I think they both have their place, but it's one of those things that I think it's great that it came over. It's still not an option on the PS4, which I think is a slight to people who helped early adopt the game over here in the States.
I got you. And I mean, I think that's completely fair too. I mean, yes, Dragon Quest has been on, other consoles. It's been on PlayStation before. But I've always kind of thought that its home was on Nintendo consoles.
Correct.
When I think of, even though they weren't necessarily, they kind of were exclusive, even if they weren't labeled that way. But a lot of the Dragon Quest came out on DS over here.
They did not come out on other titles. The first... Well, yeah, I think the first 6 were all Nintendo consoles.
Yeah. So that's kind of a big deal. I think they should be rewarded, like you said. Those early adopters who kind of showed the support for the series that they needed to see to bring this over here.
Yep.
And I think also Nintendo, just kind of being the company that they are, wanting to embrace a bunch of indie games. I feel like they've kind of opened their arms to more stuff like, hey, okay, yeah, let's give them this kind of content. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They show us that they have an interest in this series. And I think that's great, even for indie games, because that lets us get more games onto consoles, which is more accessible for people.
I agree.
Yeah. So, favorite type of RPG, what would that be?
Favorite type would probably just be JRPG. Japanese RPGs are probably my favorite. I do thoroughly enjoy the Souls series as well. I can really appreciate that, but I don't know. It doesn't necessarily have to be turn-based. When I was younger, I lived in Japan. I lived in Okinawa for almost 6 years. So the influence and everything of the culture from when I was little, I've just always been impressed with it. When I was a little kid, I didn't have American cartoons. I had DBZ and I had Sailor Moon and Battle for the Planets, or Gatchaman is what it was called over here. Samurai Spirits or Ronin Warriors, that's always interested me. So when I see any kind of Japanese influence in an RPG, it's just something I've always enjoyed.
I got you.
So I play a little bit of everything, tactical, ARPG, but yeah, just a traditional JRPG has always been my favorite.
All right. So I know currently you were going through Tales of Grace's F on
Correct.
The PS3.
Correct.
So you are, I don't want to say halfway through.
About halfway. Yeah. About halfway through the title. Yeah.
So I'm enjoying watching you play it. I try to catch you, when I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely recommend checking out Ice's channel on Twitch. I'll have the link in my description. So please make sure to check him out and watch this playthrough. And what do y'all have planned next? Do you know yet?
So next, actually, believe it or not, is Bloodborne. Get Good is actually what's next. We're doing a community vote for what weapon I have to play with through the entire game, or the type of weapon I have to choose through the entire game. It's a little bit away from the deviation of what's normally on the channel, but as you said, I still buy games to this day. I still respect, what a lot of developers put out there, and I think Bloodborne's been one of the best games in the past couple of years, even though it's very different from what I normally play. After that, I haven't really made plans, but I love, as you said, Nintendo RPGs, and I love Camelot, the people who did Shining Force and Golden Sun. And I haven't played Golden Sun quite yet, so for maybe people that are listening to this, there may be some Golden Sun on the stream soon.
Oh, all right. So you heard it here first.
So I dig that. Yeah, hear it here first.
Yeah.
It just may be Golden Sun.
All right. Well, that's awesome, though. So we kind of mentioned it earlier. I told you we'd come back to it. You mentioned not PT, but Silent Hills, a.k.a., the demo PT, which is all we have to kind of like hold on to for the time being. Kojima is obviously a huge influence in the gaming everywhere. I mean, everybody knows that name, Kojima.
Correct.
You were probably one of the bigger Metal Gear Solid fans like me. I know that is something that we have always kind of like both enjoyed talking about and stuff like that, is Metal Gear and Resident Evil.
Correct, yeah.
So with Death Stranding coming out, what are you expecting? What are you looking for? Have you watched anything on it? Or are you going in blind?
So I've only watched one story trailer, and something I've done, and I can't recommend this to anybody. I know it takes a lot of self-control, but I don't watch trailers anymore. Movie trailers, a lot of game trailers I won't watch, like a teaser announcement or something like that I generally get into. But I like going into it without an opinion. I think a lot of times now, especially where I stream now, people will automatically formulate an opinion based around the people that they associate with, or what they see through Twitter, or other various news channels. And with the Kojima game, as you mentioned, Kojima has always been about an experience.
Yes.
No matter what game you've played that Kojima has done, whether it's Zone of Enders or Metal Gear, or as you said, PT or something like that, he always is trying to provide an experience with a message.
Yeah, for sure.
And as I said, it's not necessarily always about the gameplay that 100% resonates with me, but the message that he sends, a lot of times is what's really cool. I can't wait to play my walking simulator.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's not necessarily about how great the game is. It's about how great of an environment he built, the story that he tells, and things like that. So
I think that's something he's always been really good at. I mean, we're at, in the Metal Gear Solid saga, there's 6 entries technically.
Yeah.
And then you have 3 Metal Gear. Right.
So you have the MSX versions and NES versions.
Yep.
And then you have the Solid series with 5 Phantom Pain VR. You could count the acids and portable ops and stuff like that. But as I said, there's a lot to it as far as that goes.
It's all woven so weird that you really have to play them all to understand it at this point.
Yeah, to his point. So.
And I think we're kind of going to get that with Death Stranding. I don't think any of us are going to know what is going on until the end.
I agree.
I just don't. I've heard some rumors that his studio may be doing movies in the future. What do you think?
And he actually, apparently he confirmed that. He said that his studio is put to a point that they would be able to produce something like that. So I think that'd be interesting. He's a huge fan of cinema.
Yeah.
If you follow him on any of his social media channels, he always talks about his favorite films every year. His recommendations, the things that he sees, the Blu-rays that he buys, and things like that. And he consumes that culture just like we consume video games. So it'd be interesting to see. It's with the format that he's always had a large amount of time to tell his stories. Where traditionally, as far as a film goes, it's 2.5, maybe 3 hours at the most. So it'd be interesting to see him take these huge overarching ideas that slowly introduce themselves in the game to being able to put that all in a shorter time frame. Would be interesting.
Do you think we'll be looking at a 12 movie entry series?
If he had his way, yes. Yes, that's how it would be. But I think it's one of those things that the properties that he has or that he's worked on, I don't think he really would touch in cinema. I think it'd be
yeah.
something completely different. So depends on the message he'd want to tell.
Yeah. I could see maybe a Death Stranding movie, like a continuation from the game. I could see that maybe. Because
Yeah.
I feel like this, I'm going to be honest, I feel like this is going to be a really, really long Ground Zeroes. It's going to be this prequel that gives us like this kernel of information. And it's just like,
Yeah. Because, as he said, it's all about connection. And we
Yeah.
don't know what kind of connections you'll make by the end of the game. And if that's everything.
I mean, we're talking about the guy who literally put in a hidden scene in Metal Gear Solid 5 when all of the nukes got dismantled.
Correct.
Did not trigger until then.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that happened until a few years ago.
Correct.
Right? It was like last year, year before.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and that game came out in 2015.
It's been a good few years.
Yeah, so, I mean, who knows what we're going to find in this game. And he's putting literally everybody in the game,
Oh,
too.
yeah. I can't wait to see Conan O'Brien in my Death Strandings.
Exactly, man. Give me an otter suit, swim faster in the river, I'll take it. So, I mean, I don't know. But you are hyped for Death Stranding, though.
Yes, of course, yeah.
I technically play more current games than you do that when they release. But that's one of the reasons why I like watching you, is because I enjoy watching you play through these games that you are good at, even though you get frustrated sometimes.
There's a little bit of salt, man.
Yeah, a little bit of salt on a couple games here and there I've seen, but it's understandable because of how they were made back then. That was your difficulty, to be honest.
Correct.
Were the puzzles, the enemies, no matter how cheesy they were.
Oh yeah, that's it. And as I said, it's one of those things that it's really neat because I do still play games outside of stream, and a lot of them are newer games. I kind of sat on it for a while, but I'm playing the God of War for PS4 now, and
Oh, nice.
I've actually been working through the new Call of Duty recently. I just got a new graphics card for my PC, so kind of seeing that and just looking at the way that we can mold a story now compared to what we can now. So I still love to see the newer product and stuff like that, and the competitiveness of what people are developing.
And I was very shocked when I found out you were actually playing the more recent Call of Duty, because that's something that I'm playing. And I feel like while we do play the same type of games, it's not normally at the same time. And I feel like Call of Duty is not normally one of your titles that you play.
Not often. First Modern Warfare, when it came out, I was all over. But it's kind of the same thing. Before I'd stream, that was my social.
Yeah.
I had kids, so when I would go home, I'd get a couple hours a night with the guys from work or a couple buddies. And that was my thing, man. Get on Wetworks and get 26 and win, just be happy about it. So, but no, it's I still like that. I think just like we mentioned with Twitch and building a community, I think you can create that on PSN or Xbox Live or anything like that with the newer titles. By playing through people, Warframe, Destiny, Call of Duty. Even if people aren't a huge fan of it, Fallout 76. There are some titles that people are very passionate about.
Oh, for sure.
And being able to get together and play those every night and continuously building that relationship that you have with people, I think it's just as important.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what game you really play, in my opinion. I mean, me, you, and another friend of ours, we used to play Operation Raccoon City.
Yes, we did.
And we had a ball with it.
I was the worst
man.
healer in the world, but I did it.
Yeah.
So. But yep.
I mean, yeah, you can just is the community, like you were saying. I mean, that's
what it's about, man.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here, because we've always kind of talked about games. As long as we've known each other. I mean, that's kind of how we met each other.
How we met.
Yeah, was gaming. So just kind of want to have you on here and kind of shoot the shit, so to speak.
Yeah.
Talk about games and just kind of let my audience know about your channel and the different stuff that you play on there, man.
Well, thank you.
Because I enjoy watching you, and I think finding somebody who plays retro games is a very small group, and I think there's a lot of people that enjoy them, but
just don't know where to find it.
Yeah,
so.
Don't know where to find it, exactly. So I mean, I really appreciate you coming on here, man, and
yeah, no problem, guys. Always a pleasure. So.
Please make sure you check out Ic3lion on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Ic3lion84. And drop him a follow or a subscribe. And make sure to like, subscribe, and share to my channel as well. Thanks again for coming on, Ice. And I'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, guys.
See you.